Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of IZZY Does It. This week is another solo episode. I'm trying to do this whole 1 week with guest, 1 week solo just to recap the episode and discuss what topics that were talked about in the last episode. The previous episode, I had Malai Didi, the CEO of Smarter, on IZZY Does It, and it is a sponsored episode by Heidelberg Materials, and we want to thank them so much for sponsoring the episode. It is in their efforts to spread awareness on autism or people with disabilities, and also like in an effort to understanding what these people are going through, trying to bust some myth and misconceptions and try to basically just understand them better. And I think Malai Didi was the perfect person to speak to about this, because not only is she the CEO of Smarter Brunei, like it's basically an NGO that helps people with autism or people on the spectrum, but she also has children who are autistic. Not to mention her brother, her youngest brother is also autistic. Just to recap the episode, I really enjoyed speaking to her. Initially, we both were going to just talk about like how she fell into the role of CEO, because when I did my research, I found out that her father was one of the founding members of Smarter Brunei. So basically, there are like different families who come together and set up this NGO. And then her father, as you all know, passed away. And then she took on the role and continued her like father's legacy. I was not expecting us to talk about grief and how she had to basically live side by side with grief while also taking on this new leadership role. Even though her father sort of like prepped her from the very beginning, from when she was like a tender age of 12 to like shadow her whenever he does all these meetings with the government, or when he does all these like trainings and stuff like that. So it was a very interesting story, something like I feel like that I could see in a movie. But yeah, we did not expect to be talking about her father's passing and like how he passed away. I knew I was going to ask how he passed away and how that impacted Smarter Brunei, but I didn't expect us to dive deep into the process, the experience of grief and how to deal with it. And that's what I want to talk about today. I asked you guys on Instagram if any of you have experienced grief or dealt with it in the past. Some people, I don't know if I should call them lucky because they haven't experienced it yet, because I'm sure it's inevitable, right? Grief is an emotion that we all will inevitably experience or feel. From my personal experience, I think I experienced the youngest that I remember feeling like grief or like loss of like someone that I cared about was my late grandfather. And that was a heartbreaking one because I wasn't around. Not that I was in Brunei, I was basically going on a camping trip with my friends. And then I think if I remember correctly, this was like ages ago, okay, when I was in my like teens, early teens kala. And then I think he was andangnya sakit di hospital. And I remember my mom, she wasn't gonna let me go on this camping trip, right? Because if anything were to happen. And then she was right. So I remember getting that phone call from my mom. She was like hysterical. She was like, "Yatakaw na, la la la, blah blah blah." And I felt like immense guilt. And I didn't even get to spend a night in the jungle. Like I remember Utan Manaka. Yeah, we went to it. But after that, one of the senior members that I went with, it was a camping trip because I was an athlete in fencing dulu. So we had like our senior fencers. I think it was a team building thing. So one of our senior fencers, he had to like send me home to my mom, and I just remember crying because my mom was like, yeah, she didn't hold back and making me feel bad, but she was also going through grief, right? She lost her father basically. So, and I guess she just sort of like projected it onto me because everyone else was there. My cousins, I think they were there when he one day announced that he passed in the hospital. But Alhamdulillah, sampatlah that first night went to his house, and then yeah, like did the whole tahlil, tujuh hari and stuff. Yeah, I think that was the youngest I've ever experienced grief. It was so weird. Like, not that I'm saying like I was always close to my late grandfather, but he was always this like figure that I would look excited to meet every Raya, because that's when we all gathered to his house and just salam him. And then like he wasn't verbal because he had stroke And this was when I was already like super young. So macam I never had a full conversation. Maybe I did, but I can't remember because I was so young at the time. And then what else do I remember about him? Actually, this is a good time to just reflect on my late grandfather because I really, every single year kami pergi ke makam, I would feel like emotional and I always wish that I could have a conversation with him because I'm pretty sure he had like so much stories to tell about his time, his life, and our parents. Me and my cousins, we all adore him so much, even though we don't have that close relationship. He had that presence about him even when he's like not physically here, like we still felt it because his aura or his essence lived in within our parents. And yeah, and I always say like I'm lucky to be born in this family because of how he raised our parents, my mom and her siblings lah basically kan. And yeah, you can just definitely see like he had such a huge effect on everybody. But yeah, like I wish I could have conversations with him. Every year we go to Makam and I just feel like really sad that yeah, he left so early on. Tapi that was like a very brief kind of grief because I didn't have that close relationship with him. Yes, we saw him like during functions, dulu tu, and every year, time raya, but it's not like a daily kind of thing. So I think it's a different kind of grief. Like he was just this figure in our family, like the House of Hashim, because his name is Pringana Aji Hashim. So that's why, call it House of Hashim basically. But the second time that I've experienced grief personally was the death of my late stepfather. Now, that is also a very complicated situation because at that time, my mother and him were divorced. Like, he remarried. My mom was like, they had a healthy relationship, like, basically, like, even though they were not together. I just remember, I think it was the year 2015 kali because aku ingat masa kami ke kubur time puasa, I saw the year 2015. So nasalah aku yung meninggal 2015. I think that was also like a very weird situation where I kind of obviously like wish he was still alive because he was a renowned journalist and he was definitely like a creative. He was a huge supporter of the arts, but he was also, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, he was quite controversial too because he's very outspoken. And I think that's where I get it from, which is so funny because yeah, I always say like macam, oh, if he were to be alive still, I think he would be so proud of what I'm doing. He would probably even be a guest on my podcast. I don't know if you guys would know this name, but he is Mullah Rosli Abidin Yahya. Yeah, he was a journalist. He used to work for Borneo Bulletin until he became a freelancer. And then I think he also is an author, by the way. He has books that he wrote. I remember I wrote something and I wanted him to read it, but I can't remember what happened to that project. I was also, again, so young, right? 2015. It's 2025 now, and I'm turning 36 soon. So you do the math. How old was I when he passed away? But yeah, I think that's as close as my experience is with grief. So it's, I would say like macam ito pulang light. I was still very much sad. I remember I had to, when he passed away, I was present. So I was in the hospital. I remember it was subuh. My mom knocked on my door, and she was like, "Oh, your dad is like, the doctors are saying like, macam, his situation is critical. He had hepatitis C. Hepatitis C. I think it's like a liver thing. I think it was failing or something lah. And then she actually gave me a choice whether I wanted to go to the hospital or not. And I don't know what was it in me that, because I had a late night prior to that morning, kan. I could have just said no and I wanted to go back to sleep, but I don't know, something inside me was like, you know what, let's just go. So I went with my mom and my sisters. Yang kesiannya, my second sister, Tamatoi, she was in Saudi or something because she was studying to be a tafiz. So it was me, my mom, and my younger sister, and my late stepfather punya wife and son. Yeah, like yeah, we were at the hospital. I think maximum 2 people were only allowed to be in the room. And then there was a time when the doctor was like, okay, you can say your farewell now. And I remember the doctor said, oh, but don't touch him, like takut infect or whatever. But I didn't care. I just touched his hand and I was like, like you've been the only father to me. Like even though if you were like a stepfather, like you were the only father that I had. And I just thanked him and I was like, apologizing to him. Like we had like a very like weird relationship too, but he was always there for me. I remember one of my birthday, like he asked me what I want, and that time he was already like divorced from my mom. And I was like, oh, I want a PS2, and he actually bought me PS2, and I was like, yeah. But I truly do miss him, and I genuinely believe that if he were still to be around, like he would definitely be part of somehow, like part of what I'm doing, like in media. Because I mean, when I'm doing podcasts, when I'm interviewing someone, that counts as journalism too, right? I don't know. But yeah, back to the original topic of like dealing with grief. That's as close as how I like experienced grief at such a young age. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, but during my adult age, I have not experienced grief. So when Malay Didi shared the death of a parent, it's always so heartbreaking, right? And I do have friends or people who I used to know who, lost one or both parents, and they always talk about how, they wish they could turn back time and spend more time with them. It's just such a heartbreaking idea to, or even to acknowledge that death is inevitable. One day we will have to say goodbye to our loved ones, but it's just a matter of like when. Some people say goodbye to them sooner, some later, but we all eventually have to go through it. So yeah, I asked you guys on Instagram, and I want to thank you guys also for taking the time to write in and share your experiences. The first one, there are a couple of messages that I received, which I'm gonna also read because this is a recap episode. But first, I want to talk about like grief, and then later on, I'll talk about something a lot more lighter. Kejap ah. Okay, so female 44. A lot of people are scared of grief and scared of people who are grieving. But grief is not something to be fixed or avoided. It's something we live through. There's no way out but through. If you're grieving, let yourself feel whatever you need to feel. Don't suppress it, don't rush it. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Hold on to Allah. Trust that there is wisdom in the pain, even when you can't see it. And if you're supporting someone who's grieving, please don't say, let me know if you need anything. That puts the burden on the one who's already carrying so much. When I lost my dad, I couldn't begin to think about what I needed. What meant the most was when people simply did something, said a dua for him, shared a memory, brought food without asking. If you knew the person they lost, tell stories, say their name, don't be afraid to bring them up. It hurts more when it feels like everyone else has moved on. Yeah, this is like so heartbreaking because I truly don't think that there is a specific way to comfort someone who is grieving, and the best way to do it is to just let them be and be there when they finally are ready to ask for help or anything. It's just sometimes a bit weird because you want to let them know that you will be there for them, or I need this person is saying like, don't say please let me know if you need anything. I'm pretty sure if someone had said that, it's not their intention is baik, their niyat is baik. It's just like they truly genuinely wish like they could do something, right? But again, I feel like there's no true right or wrong way to deal with this for both sides, for the person offering help or companionship, and also for the person who is grieving, right? And what this person is saying is true. Like there's no way out but just through. Like when you're grieving, you just have to let yourself feel whatever you need to feel. I mean, you can try to suppress it, but it's only going to be temporary. Like you will eventually like feel all the emotions. We're only human. We are meant to feel the highest of emotions and the lowest of emotions. Another one. Okay, 32 female. Born to have irresponsible parents, but having a dearly lovely grandmother. She handed me to a beautiful family that I'm having till now, alhamdulillah. She died when I was in Form 3, and knowing that she is my real grandmother. Selama ni, yeah, every year ke rumah, I never knew who she was. I hated her so much, by the way, because she keeps telling me she loves me. I don't know who to blaming my adopted family, or I don't know either. I just missing her existence now. Her smell, I used to hate that smell, but now kacharian. Oh my god, this is heartbreaking. I think basically what this person is saying that her real parents was not present in her life, but she did have a grandmother who handed her the writer to her adopted family now. But her grandmother passed away when she was in Form 3. And when her grandmother, when she was alive, when she used to visit this person, she didn't know that this person was like her grandmother and she used to hate her so much because her late grandmother kept telling her that she loves her. But now that she's passed away, like she's feeling guilt. This is like the heaviest form of grieving, I feel like, when guilt is involved. I think automatically when you lose someone dear to you, you feel guilt because, again, like you're forced to relive the times when you have interacted with this person who is no longer in this life, and you will be in this loop of like, what if I had done this, what if I had done that, what if I showed more love, what if I reciprocated back whenever they said something nice, what if I was more present. But I think this is something that we all need to understand, is that I don't want to say like, don't feel guilty, because it will obviously not work. You will still feel guilty, but I hope you find peace in knowing that you only did what you did at the time based on your knowledge and your feelings at the time, and I don't know, obviously that will not bring you comfort, because this is something so sensitive. It's like guilt combined with grief is a very heavy emotion. And I think even as time passes, there will be moments when you feel when you grieve and feel guilt like it's mula, but I think you will just have to learn to live with it and as use that experience as a reminder to not take the people that you love for granted. I think that's just life. You always think you could have done better in the past, even though when you're like living in the present. I think some things are just not in your control. Like, sometimes we wish we would spend more time with our parents, but we also have our own life, like, work and stuff. And sometimes we wish we checked in with our friends more, but they have their own life and we have our own life, Joa. So yeah, if we are stuck in that loop, it's gonna like kill you, like internally, and it's gonna keep breaking your heart. And I don't know, it's like, yeah, that's so complex. And this is not me saying that you shouldn't do that or whatever. I'm here to just share other people's stories, just to let you know that other people are experiencing it too. This is not an isolated event. Like, know that other people are going through this, and that, yeah, you are not alone. Which is why, like, this is something that I appreciate so much, having this like IZZY Does It community, to a safe space for anyone to share their stories, whether it be like happy stories or heartbreaking stories. And I was actually very hesitant like talking about this topic, because it's not like I'm a licensed therapist or I have any words of comfort, but I just wanted to have a space where we can talk about this openly, right? I'm sorry if you're going through grief right now, and if you're listening to this expecting comfort. I don't know if anyone is able to comfort you, but if you've dealt with it and you think I'm doing a bad job by doing this episode, I'm really sorry. That's not my intention at all. I just wanted to, again, have a safe space to discuss, this topic, because Malai Didi was so brave in being vulnerable and sharing the story of her dad's passing, and I just thought that it would be helpful to also share other people's stories, those who are willing to share, such as this one. 23, female. Okay, this is quite a long one. I lost my mom, bracket arwah umi, in my early 20s, and it was very sudden and unexpected. I had never imagined going through this painful experience, but it was something I had to process. And here are the few things I've learned about grief. Okay, so first things first, katanya. There's no such thing as moving on from grief. The way I see it, you move forward while carrying all the complex emotions that come from dealing with love that has no place to go. Grief may feel lighter on some days, but heavier on other days. From my experience, I processed my grief more through the small little things that reminded me of what I lost, rather than the actual day of her passing. Visiting restaurants we used to eat at together, celebrating festive holidays without having her in the picture, oh my god. Celebrating small wins without being able to see their smile, those were the moments that made grief feel heavier. Grief has no timeline, and that's okay. The most important thing is to make space for it and to be as raw and honest as you can in processing the kinds of emotions that may resurface. I also learned the differences between sympathy and empathy. I wish people wouldn't just pity someone who's grieving. Kasihan Joko was a phrase I hated hearing when I lost arwah umi. I didn't need any sympathy. I just needed someone to be there and to have the ability to hold space for my grief by listening and sitting with my feelings, no matter how uncomfortable or messy it can be. During the initial stage of grief, I wish I could hear more of, I know it's hard and heavy, just let it out. It's okay to not be okay. Instead of, stay strong, ada hikmahnya. Sometimes all I needed was space to feel my feelings, of toughening myself, because only when you allow your feelings to flow is where healing truly begins. Wow, for a 23-year-old female girl, you put this so like nicely. I'm so sorry that you lost your mom so early on in your 20s, you mentioned, but you mentioned a lot of like good points here, especially like I mentioned earlier, I don't think you can move on from grief. You move forward while carrying all the complex emotions that come from dealing with love that has no place to go. That part kills me. In like, not like in a bad way, but like it's a statement that is so heartbreaking but true. And then she also says, you know, grief may feel lighter on some days but heavier on other days. And this is what Malai Didi also shared. It's like grief creeps up on you when you least expect it, especially on days where you had like an amazing day, right? Because then you're like, but this person who passed away is not here to experience this with me. Like, I can't share this with them. Like, I wish they were here with me. And that's like so heartbreaking. I'm not crying, by the way. Like, I feel really sad, but like, I mean, just in case you're listening or watching, my voice may sound like I'm crying, but if you're watching this, you can see that I'm not crying. Tapi macam kesian lah berhabis. Genuinely, sometimes I do worry when like, and I don't know if this is a morbid thought, but I generally do worry for like the time when I have to deal with like death of a loved one or grief. Like, I don't know if I'm able to, because I'm very emotional too. Like when my late father passed away, the one that I was telling you guys earlier, though, I didn't cry when he passed. Like, we were there. So me and my youngest sister and my mother, we were there, like the hospital bed when the the beep ato went flat. We were there. And I just remember hugging my younger sister. My mom, she was crying. Stepmom, katajo, like my late father, my wife, was also like, you know, crying. They were hugging each other. I did not cry because I felt like I have to be strong for my mom, for my sister. I was like, sad. I was hugging my sister, and I felt bad for my other sister who was not there, who couldn't be there because she was in Saudi. And then throughout the day, you know, ke kubur, I did not mandikan my late stepfather punya jenazah. But I was at the the kubur, yeah, and then tahlil, right? Only after all of that was done, I went to my room. Only then I broke down. I broke down because, again, like all the memories of like me and him together resurfaced. All the times when I hated him because whenever me and my sisters would fight, he would always take on their side. He would never take on my side. And I always blamed the fact that, yeah, just because you're not my real father, like doesn't mean that you have to take my sister's side. And obviously you feel guilt, right? But now in hindsight, like again, I was thinking like I was a child. When you're a kid, you see all these like stupid things and you think about all these like stupid things, right? But now that I'm a grown man, like, yeah, you know, it's like, yeah, that's it lah. You know, you can't blame yourself for the things that you said when you were younger. But yeah, actually, when I was talking about that, I remember like the most recent grief I've felt was, again, I don't know, this is not me trying to compare like grief, right? Tapi I don't know if this is silly to bring up, but when my cat died, I was really heartbroken too. I think that was more of like guilt. Yeah, guilt and grief lah, because my cat Gretel, like I was the closest to her and she was the closest to me. And when she passed away, because she was a house cat one. Sekali that night, I came home late and usually we would let her out during the day just because niya ni pun mau keluar jua, so my mom would let her out. And then she would, my mom, whenever aku balik, if Gretel was outside, she knows, she would come with me to the main door and she would masak with me, right? And then this one particular night, I came home super late, so I assumed Gretel was already inside the house. My mom would probably let her in. Yeah, ako balik rumah lah macam nada, and then I slept, right? Sekali rupanya, oh my god, the next morning, I knew. Whenever my mom knocks my door, I knew it's never a good thing. It's always something bad. I think that was like from my experience when she knocked on my door about like my late stepfather being like critical hospital. So when I was like, oh my god, apa lagi ni? Something is not right. And she was like, bang, mana si Gretel? I was like, oh no. And she said she heard like dogs and she heard a cat and katanya chumuko to Gretel kato. So she asked me to check. I think she was also like scared to find out if it was Gretel or not. And then this was like so early, like probably like 5:30 to 6 ka. And yeah, I went outside. I looked at the body and it was Gretel and I was like, oh my god. I tell you, when I say like I felt so guilty, I kept telling myself, if only I called out to her name that night and just double check saja kalau ia ada di dalam rumah atau tidak. Kalau ia ada di luar ataupun tidak, like I could have just let her in and she would be alive till this very day. And I still miss her and I still think about her whenever I look at other cats. Like, she was my best friend in this house. Yeah, I mean, there was no darah or anything. I don't know what happened. I think badannya terpulas sekali or something. Because it was like in a very weird position, like, because of stray dogs lah, basically. Yeah, so we buried her at our backyard and yeah. Yeah, that was like a very, yeah, so yeah, now I just remember like experiencing guilt and grief as an adult was about like the death of my cat Gretel. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if you feel like I'm undermining any other like people who've experienced grief from losing an actual person, but I think grief comes in different forms. Like you can feel grief from losing, doesn't mean like a human passing away, I guess. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody who shared their stories and I really appreciate it. It probably is not easy to type everything and send them to me because you kind of have to revisit it in your head, you know, recalling memories or moments with your loved ones. But thank you so much. And I do hope that this reaches whoever is dealing with grief. And again, this episode may not be able to, this episode is not able to comfort anyone, but it's also not meant for that jua. I just wanted to share stories. Yeah. Another thing that I asked on Instagram was when Malai Didi shared that she didn't get to experience normalcy when she was younger after her youngest brother was born and diagnosed with autism, like she had to like take care of him and stuff, right? She didn't get experience normalcy, and that got me thinking, Joe, like how many people had to put their life on hold or put their needs, wants aside to care for a loved one who is on the spectrum or is disabled. And some of you came through and said something. 35 years old, male, that's my age. I have two sons. One is neurotypical and the other is autistic. As siblings growing up together, especially when one has autism, it's easy for the other to feel overlooked. Not because we love him any less, but because so much of our daily routine revolves around therapy, intervention, and care. The constant commuting from Kuala Belait to Bandar to support our autistic son's development is physically and emotionally exhausting. Still, we want our other son to know he is just as deeply loved, even if sometimes time and energy seem unevenly shared. This is a very interesting viewpoint, Jua, and props to his father, Jua, for being aware that he and his wife has to put more energy to their other son, which will probably result in their other son feeling overlooked, peduli. But I think when he is still so young, I guess he will probably feel that way. But hopefully when he grows up, he'll look back and be like, yeah, like, I guess it had to happen that way, right? Because people who are on the spectrum or disabled need more attention and care. But yeah, this is something that I can sympathize to anybody lah, like macam including this one. And it's like, that's why I have so much respect for Malai Didi and families like this guy, because that must take like a lot of time and energy to make sure that their autistic child sibling are okay. And thank God for organizations like Smarter and Unique Learn, which is also a program under Anur Harapan, who takes care of people who are autistic and prepares them for like real life stuff. I'm so happy and glad and grateful that these organizations exist in Brunei, because I don't think families themselves can deal with it. Like, it's so hard and intricate, right? You have to know what to do. Now looking back, like, I'm so glad that I did that episode with Malay Didi, and I hope it reaches the right people, just so that they know that they're not alone. Like, there's so many other families that are going through this. It's not easy. It's not easy, and I sympathize, and I'm grateful for people like them. And also, I'm about to go full like spiritual here, but like, you know, these autistic people, I'm pretty sure like dorang benar-benar berjasa lah, dorang punya parents or siblings who takes care of them, or even caretakers, their caretakers, whoever they are lah, in relation to dorang ni. Because I don't know if they're aware lang of their own condition, but they're also human, right? Like, if they are not aware about their situation in this life, they'll probably know in the afterlife, and they'll probably like doakan orang-orang yang terbaik. I don't know, that's just like my thought process. I don't know if it makes sense, but I mean, if I was autistic, and if I have like the same level of awareness I have now, I would be so thankful that I have someone who takes care of me. You have to imagine when we talk about stuff like this, we imagine like the broader idea, right? But no, you have to imagine the picture in granular detail. You wake up, you bangunkan yung anak yang with autism or your sibling. You have to prepare them for, I don't know, kalau ada sekolah, you have to, I don't know if you have to mandikan them, you have to calm them, you have to figure out a strategy on how to get them to do stuff. You have to feed them the car ride, and then what if you want to go somewhere but you can't because you have to take them to somewhere, or you have to jaga them. It's all this little stuff that I think about, you know, when people go through this. So yeah, I'm going deeper, and that's just how my mind works, you know. Like, I sometimes put myself in these people in a situation and try to imagine what they go through on a daily basis. But yeah, I've got a few other messages as well in response to the Malay Didi episode. Female 31 says she met Allah Yarham Malay Haji Abdullah during PKBN. He was truly an amazing figure and truly one of a kind. A trailblazer and a great empath. We can clearly see it through his Dr. Malay Didi, how his parenting has shaped her to be the individual that she is today. Would love to emulate his parenting style and values to my own children. It's true. I can definitely see from my conversation with Malay Didi that her father is truly an empath with high emotional intelligence, managed to raise his kids like to be just like him. Another one, the last comment, female 31, loved the mention of the spoon analogy, learned that during therapy, loved the circle analogy of autism spectrum because we tend to think of autism as a straight line kind of thing when in reality it overlaps with many other neurodivergent conditions. Yep, I really hope the episode spread enough awareness or helped you understand more about autism, people on the spectrum. There are 2 more episodes that are sponsored by Heidelberg, which has the same type of conversation but different stories. And I'm probably going to take a break next week to just edit more episodes, and yeah, I'm excited for you guys to watch that. Don't worry, I have recorded a few episodes already. I just need to take a break. Thank you so much for listening if you've listened to the very end, and yeah, I'll see you guys the next time I see you. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.